I didn't think much of it at first. It was just a small detail, something almost invisible unless I looked closely. But one morning, standing in front of the mirror, I noticed my teeth looked longer. Not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to point it out, but enough for me to feel that quiet discomfort in the back of my mind. And that's how it usually begins. Not with pain, not with urgency, but with a subtle shift, a feeling that something isn't quite the same anymore. If you've ever caught yourself noticing your gums pulling back just a little, or feeling a slight sensitivity when brushing, then you already know what I'm talking about. It's that silent moment where a simple observation turns into a deeper question. Is this normal? Or is something starting to go wrong? Mirino. What makes this even more unsettling is that gum recession doesn't just affect how your smile looks. It slowly begins to affect how you feel about yourself. The way you speak, the way you laugh, the way you show up around other people, the way you avoid certain foods because they trigger discomfort, the way you position yourself in photographs, unconsciously hiding that smile you used to give freely. And underneath all of that, there's a fear that most people don't say out loud. The fear of losing teeth. The fear of looking in the mirror and seeing time move forward in a way that feels out of your control. The fear of what comes next. Of dental bills that could empty your savings. Of procedures that sound painful and invasive. Of looking older than you feel inside. Because let's be honest, when you think about gum recession, what images come to mind? For most people, it's the same troubling narrative. Expensive dental work, painful grafting procedures, permanent damage that can't be undone. And somewhere in that story is the quiet resignation that once it starts, there's nothing simple you can do to stop it. But here's the part no one really explains clearly. That fear doesn't come from nowhere. It's often shaped by what we hear. Stories of expensive dental procedures, invasive treatments, long recoveries, and the idea that once your gums start receding, there's nothing simple you can do about it. Stories from friends who waited too long, family members who spent thousands on treatments that didn't fully restore what was lost, articles that list all the things that can go wrong, but rarely explain what you can actually do before it reaches that point. So what happens? Most people hesitate. They wait. They ignore the early signs. Not because they don't care, but because they feel stuck between uncertainty and fear. Stuck between not knowing what to do and being afraid of what they might have to face if they seek help. Stuck between the discomfort of now and the terror of later. And I was there too. For months, I told myself it wasn't that bad, that it was just aging, that everyone goes through this eventually, that maybe if I just brushed more carefully, it would somehow get better on its own, until I started noticing a pattern. Not in advertisements, not in quick fixes, but in something much more basic, something that, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee. What if, in the early stages, this isn't just something happening to you? What if it's also something being influenced, quietly, by what you do every single day? That question changes everything, because it shifts the story from helplessness to awareness, and awareness is where control begins. Think about it for a moment. How many things in your daily routine do you do on autopilot? You wake up, brush your teeth the same way you've brushed them for 40 years, use the same products, follow the same pattern. And why wouldn't you? It's what you've always done. It's what feels normal. But what if some of those normal habits are exactly what's accelerating the problem? I started looking deeper, not for miracle cures, but for what professionals consistently observe about gum health, aging, and how the body responds over time. And what I found was surprisingly grounded. In many cases, the early progression of gum recession is closely tied to daily habits. Not extreme ones, not obvious mistakes, but small, repeated actions that seem harmless, yet add up over time. Like the way you hold your toothbrush, the angle you use when you brush, the pressure you apply without even thinking about it, The 60 seconds you rush through instead of the 2 to 3 minutes that actually make a difference. And once you see that, you start to realize something powerful. If habits can contribute to the problem, they can also become part of the solution. Now, before I go further, if this is something that's been on your mind, if you've been feeling that quiet concern about your gums and what it might mean for the future, deixamos no primeiro link na descrição guia prático para você acessar de forma rápida, clique e veja. Because sometimes, having a simple, clear direction is what helps break that cycle of doubt and hesitation. Sometimes, what you need isn't another product or another promise. It's a roadmap that actually makes sense. As I continued exploring this, another layer became clear. The issue isn't just what people aren't doing, it's also what they're doing wrong, without realizing. Things that feel normal, habitual, even recommended in some cases. And this is where it gets interesting. Because when I started asking questions, when I started really paying attention to what dental professionals were saying beyond the sales pitches and product placements, a very different picture emerged. Let me walk you through what I discovered. The first mistake is one almost everyone makes: brushing with too much force. It feels productive, doesn't it? Like you're really getting in there, really cleaning. Like the harder you scrub, the cleaner your teeth will be. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Your gums are soft tissue, delicate. They're not meant to withstand aggressive scrubbing day after day, year after year. And when you apply too much pressure, especially along the gum line where the tissue is most vulnerable, you're not just cleaning, you're wearing it down. Think of it like washing a delicate fabric. You wouldn't scrub silk with a rough brush and expect it to stay intact. But that's exactly what many people do to their gums every single day without realizing the long-term cost. The second mistake is the motion itself. That rapid back and forth scrubbing motion. It's instinctive. It's what we've all been doing since childhood. But dental professionals consistently recommend something very different. A gentle, circular motion at a 45-degree angle to the gum line. Why? Because that motion respects how the gum tissue attaches to the tooth. It cleans without pushing. It protects instead of peeling away the very tissue you're trying to preserve. The third mistake is one that took me by surprise: using the wrong toothbrush. I always thought a toothbrush was just a toothbrush, but the bristle firmness matters more than most people realize. Hard bristles might feel like they're doing more work, but they're often doing more damage. Soft bristles, used correctly, are far more effective at cleaning without causing trauma to the gums. Then there's the mistake of ignoring the spaces between your teeth. Your toothbrush, no matter how good it is, simply cannot reach those tight interdental spaces where plaque loves to hide. And when plaque builds up there, unchecked, day after day, it triggers inflammation. And inflammation is one of the primary drivers of gum recession. Think about it this way. You could be brushing perfectly, using all the right techniques. But if you're skipping the spaces between your teeth, you're only addressing part of the problem. And here's one of the most dangerous mistakes of all: normalizing the warning signs. Bleeding gums. Oh, that's normal. I just brushed too hard. Sensitivity when drinking something cold. Hey, I've always had sensitive teeth. Slight swelling or tenderness. It'll go away on its own. But these aren't just minor inconveniences. They're your body sending you a message. And when you ignore that message, when you normalize symptoms that are actually early indicators of a deeper issue, you're allowing the problem to progress silently until it becomes much harder to address. I remember the first time my gums bled while brushing. I rinsed, shrugged it off, and kept going. It happened again the next day, and the day after that. And instead of seeing it as a red flag, I just got used to it. That's how insidious this process is. It doesn't demand your attention. It just quietly takes more and more ground while you look the other way. Now, hearing all of this might feel overwhelming. You might be thinking, I've been doing some of these things for years. Does that mean I've already caused permanent damage? And I want to pause here and address that fear directly. Because this is also where things begin to shift. Once you understand what might be contributing to the problem, you can finally start doing something about it, in a way that actually aligns with how your body works. And this is where the professional steps come in. Not as miracles, not as instant fixes, but as practical science-aligned adjustments that support your gums over time. The first step is changing how you brush. This sounds simple, but it's foundational. Switch to a soft bristled brush if you haven't already. Hold it at a 45-degree angle to your gum line. Use gentle circular motions instead of aggressive back and forth scrubbing. Let the bristles do the work. You don't need to apply pressure. And here's something most people don't know. You should be spending at least 2 to 3 minutes brushing, not the rushed 60 seconds most of us actually do. Set a timer if you have to. Make it a ritual instead of a chore. The second step is committing to proper interdental cleaning. This means flossing, daily, not occasionally, not when you remember. Daily. And if traditional floss is difficult, maybe you have arthritis, maybe dexterity is an issue, there are alternatives. Interdental brushes, water flossers. The tool doesn't matter as much as the consistency, because this is where so much hidden damage occurs. In those spaces, your toothbrush never reaches. In the pockets where bacteria thrive and inflammation builds. The third step involves supporting your body from the inside. Your gums aren't separate from the rest of your body. They're tissue, and like all tissue, they need proper nutrition to maintain themselves and repair damage. Vitamin C, for example, plays a critical role in collagen production, and collagen is what gives your gums structure and resilience. When you're deficient in vitamin C, your gums become weaker, more prone to bleeding, more vulnerable to recession. Vitamin D is another key player. It's involved in immune function and inflammation regulation. Low vitamin D levels have been associated with increased gum disease and poorer oral health outcomes. This doesn't mean you need to buy expensive supplements or overhaul your entire diet overnight, but it does mean paying attention. Eating foods rich in these nutrients. Considering supplementation if your levels are low. Working with your body instead of expecting it to function optimally on a deficient foundation. The fourth step is consistency, not intensity, not perfection. Just consistent, mindful care that allows your gums to respond over time instead of being constantly stressed. Because here's the truth, your gums can heal. In the early stages, they can stabilize. They can regain resilience. But they need the right environment to do so. And that environment is created through daily habits, not occasional interventions. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't plant seeds and then ignore them for weeks expecting a thriving garden. You water consistently. You remove weeds. You provide the conditions for growth. Your gums are no different. And the fifth step is awareness. Because once you truly understand how small daily actions affect your gums, you stop operating on autopilot and start making choices that actually support long-term health. You become conscious of the pressure you're applying when you brush. You notice when you're rushing. You feel the difference between going through the motions and actually caring for your body with intention. And that shift, from unconscious repetition to conscious care, is where everything changes. Now, if you've been feeling frustrated, like you've tried things before but never really got clarity on what works, deixamos no primeiro link na descrição guia prático para você acessar de forma rápida, clique e veja. Because sometimes what you need isn't more products. It's a clearer path, a framework that makes sense, guidance that respects your intelligence instead of trying to sell you another quick fix. What surprised me most through all of this was realizing that the body doesn't need extreme measures to begin responding. It needs the right environment. And when that environment starts to change, even in simple ways, your gums can begin to stabilize, and in early stages, even improve in appearance and resilience over time. This isn't about reversing time. It's about respecting how your body works and finally working with it instead of against it. Let me give you an example. A few months after I started implementing these changes, the softer brush, the angled technique, the daily flossing, the attention to nutrition, I noticed something. My gums stopped bleeding. That symptom I had normalized for so long just stopped. And then gradually I noticed they looked healthier, less inflamed. The color improved. The tissue felt firmer. Nothing dramatic happened overnight. But over weeks and months, the cumulative effect of doing small things correctly, consistently, created visible change. And that's when I understood something profound. The fear I had been carrying, that this was inevitable, irreversible, beyond my control, was built on incomplete information. Yes, gum recession is a real issue. Yes, if left unchecked, it can lead to serious problems. Yes, there are cases where professional intervention is necessary. But in the early stages, when you catch it, when you respond with knowledge instead of fear, there is so much you can do. And that realization doesn't just change your oral health. It changes how you see yourself. Because this isn't just about gums. It's about agency. About refusing to be a passive observer in your own aging process. About recognizing that while you can't control everything, you can control more than you thought. It's about looking in the mirror and smiling without that shadow of worry. It's about speaking with confidence, laughing freely, eating without wincing, showing up in photos without strategically hiding your mouth. It's about reclaiming something that felt like it was slipping away. And here's something else I want to address directly. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you might be thinking, is it too late for me? Have I already missed the window? And I want to be clear about this. It's not about your age. It's about the stage of the condition and your willingness to respond. I've read accounts of people in their 70s who stabilized their gum health by changing their daily habits. I've seen case studies of individuals who avoided invasive procedures by addressing inflammation and improving oral hygiene before things progressed too far. The body has an incredible capacity to respond when given the right support. Even later in life, even after years of less than ideal habits. But here's the critical part. The earlier you start, the more options you have. That quiet window, where the recession is mild, where the tissue is still relatively healthy, where intervention doesn't require surgery, that's the window where the biggest difference can be made. And that window doesn't stay open forever. I'm not saying this to create urgency for the sake of urgency. I'm saying it because it's true. Ignoring the early signs doesn't make them go away. It just makes the process harder to address later. It shrinks your options. It increases the likelihood that you'll eventually face exactly the scenario you were trying to avoid. Expensive treatments, invasive procedures, permanent loss. And that's why I keep coming back to this point. If you've been feeling that quiet concern, if you've noticed the signs but haven't known what to do, deixamos no primeiro link na descrição guia prático para você acessar de forma rápida, clique e veja. Because there are ways to approach this with more clarity, more understanding, and a lot less confusion. You don't have to figure this out alone. You don't have to sift through conflicting advice and marketing hype trying to separate what actually works from what's just being sold to you. There's a path forward, a practical one that respects both the science and your lived experience. As I look back now, what stands out isn't just the information, it's the shift from not knowing to understanding, from reacting to acting with intention, from feeling helpless to feeling empowered. Because this journey taught me something bigger than oral health. It taught me that so much of what we fear is rooted in uncertainty, in not knowing, in feeling like we don't have the tools or the knowledge to protect ourselves from outcomes we dread. But when you shine a light on that uncertainty, When you replace fear with information and helplessness with practical steps, everything changes. You stop avoiding the mirror. You stop second-guessing your smile. You stop carrying that low-level anxiety about what might happen next. And in its place comes something powerful. Confidence. Not the superficial kind. Not the kind that comes from pretending everything is fine. But the deep, grounded kind that comes from knowing you're doing what you can. From understanding your body. From taking responsibility for your health in a way that honors both your limitations and your capacity to respond. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this entire conversation, it's this. It's not too late. It's not too late to pay attention to those early signs instead of dismissing them. It's not too late to change habits that aren't serving you. It's not too late to support your body in the way it needs to be supported. It's not too late to take that first step with clarity instead of fear. Because the truth is, most people wait. They wait until the discomfort becomes pain. They wait until the cosmetic concern becomes a functional problem. They wait until their options narrow to interventions they were hoping to avoid. But you don't have to be most people. You can choose differently. You can choose awareness over avoidance. You can choose action over hesitation. You can choose to meet this moment with the information and intention it deserves. So if this made you see things from a new perspective, if you felt that moment of recognition somewhere in this story, if something clicked and you're ready to approach this differently, make sure to subscribe to this channel, because there's a lot more to uncover. More about how your daily choices shape your long-term health. More about the science behind what works and why. More about how to navigate aging with clarity instead of fear. And the next video might be exactly what you've been looking for. The piece that brings everything together. The insight that finally makes it all make sense. Because this isn't just about preventing something from getting worse. It's about restoring something that goes deeper than appearance. Your confidence, your sense of control, your ability to smile without that second thought in the back of your mind. And that's worth fighting for.